The Timestalkers, taking portraits of dangerous women, and we're finding a convert in Salem's lot. I'm Van Connor.
And I'm Adam Ball, and this is Off Screen, your 7-day guide to everything movies.
Boom. Groovy.
Hello and welcome back to Off Screen. Yes, I will face the elephant in the room. First of all, I do sound a little bit rough today. This is down to children and germs generally just being spread around the family. So,
you family folk and your child germs. You bring this up, but you know what? At least you get to while away the time looking cool in your new Timmy Mallet glasses. They're increasingly Timmy Mallet-like. Every time I see you, you're in a different sort of bright pastel colour. Set of frames, my man. What's going on? You getting stylish on me? Is that what's happening?
You're not the first person to say that they're very Timmy Mallet-esque. But do you know what? With glasses, I just got bored of the same old black glasses round the eyes. I thought, do you know what? Let's colour it up.
By the way, speaking of TV in the British TV in the 80s and 90s, Timmy Mallet, you'll appreciate this. I'll say this to you on mic. I fell down a rabbit hole the other day when I'm watching like an hour and a half's worth of retrospectives about the history of Channel 4's The Big Breakfast. My God, we never knew how good we had it, did we?
Do you know, I was watching exactly the same stuff. I was watching like the Chris and Gabby era, and then the Johnny Vaughan and Denise era.
Johnny and Denise every time. Johnny and Denise, yeah, every time, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. I can still remember their address from where I used to watch it in the mornings before school, and they'd say, 2 Lockkeepers Cottages, Old Ford Lock, London, E3, 2NN. Yep. And then they'll cheer, yeah, it's in there. Forever.
Well, it's funny the things that stick with you. Anyway, so I thought I would dissuade you there by talking about something that was fun and British made before I talk to you about something that's crap and British made. That's what I've done for you there. I've cushioned the blow in advance for you. So unfortunately, we are going to have to now talk about Portraits of Dangerous Women, which is a new film from Pascal Bergamin, Swiss director Pascal Bergamin, has co-written and then directed this. He's co-written this with Stephen Tewison, and then he's directed this. I think it might be his first English language one, perhaps not. I think there might be Boris Says. I'm unsure whether or not that was in English. So this is about 3 strangers, 3 women, who they sort of have random disconnected lives, and they happen to intersect when they accidentally kill a dog between the 3 of them, and they can't seem to quite decide who did it, who's to blame, and this sort of just brings them into each other's lives. The dog is immaterial, by the way. The dog is not the important part of the plot. The dog is literally just a catalyst. And then every now and again they mention the dog, but they get on with their own things. And it's about how they start to influence each other's bizarre, quirky little lives. If I'm making it sound interesting, it's entirely by accident, because I promise it's not. So have a listen. This is Portraits of Dangerous Women.
It occurred to me last night, the dog. What did you do with it?
I'm sorting it. To be clear, though, my doing it is by no means an admission of guilt or anything like that.
No, absolutely not.
And what about that girl?
She's okay, I think.
Actually, they're certainly nice, but it's still just amateur stuff. They have no value, no art market value, at least.
That's exactly why I want to exhibit them. You know, put them in,
Context?
No, frames. Got it?
No.
Catherine, when I say I last saw my paintings on this table yesterday, I mean it, okay? They must have been stolen.
Do you want to close up? Actually, no, let's keep it open.
Oh, it's like watching an episode of Emmerdale.
It's pretty bad, right? I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's bad, right? Let's just get the admin out of the way. You could hear Mark Lewis-Jones. He's that guy, one of our thefts. He's been, everything from Doctor Who through the British dramatic, requisite canon, as it were. He's sort of the main male lead opposite the 3 women who are played by Tara Fitzgerald, Jeannie Spark, and Yasmin Monet Prince, and. Do you know what? They are all giving great performances, sure. By all means, it's nice to see Annette Badland from Ted Lasso and Doctor Who in there as well. But they're all giving perfectly fine performances. The problem is the material's crap. I don't know how to say it. It's crap. It feels so much like, if I didn't know it was a Swiss director, I would have just assumed this was directed by some insert word I can't say here, exclusively off like his dad's dime, so that he could claim he was a filmmaker at cocktail parties. Like, it feels like one of those, and this would be the only thing he did with his life for like 4 years, even though it required like 6 months actual effort at best. It feels like that throughout. I can't tell if I think it's meant to be funny, and I sound as confused as I am, because I think the film can't quite decide if it wants to lean over into, is it meant to be a satire? Is it meant to be satirizing the specific class of people that's depicted? Because they're all quite relatively well-to-do, even the ones who sort of pose as working class, like Tara Fitzgerald's character, for instance, who's presented as a sort of working class teacher, still seems to live this idealized Guardian reader's life where people just have allotments that they look after all day and dress like maniacs, but no one ever seems to worry about money. That kind of, that kind of sense of it. You know the kind of scene I'm describing here, Mr. Ball?
Yeah, no, I do, absolutely, and I can see how you're getting to that from what I've just heard, and I'm watching the trailer on mute. You don't think that this is something that may be just lost in translation, then?
I mean, lost in translation by who? Nothing about this works. Literally not a thing about it works. I sat there and watched this, honestly, just stone-faced it was an agonizingly long 93 minutes, right? I had to look that up. I've just looked that up this second, 93 minutes. Because I'm like, hang on, how long was it? Was it under 2 hours? It had to be under 2 hours, right? I mean, it felt like more, but it had to be under 2 hours. I genuinely couldn't tell you, because time just ceased to exist as an existential and metaphysical construct, let alone an immutable, artifact of physics. Time just evaporated. It never existed. It vanished from all being, and Tara Fitzgerald and the gang just filled that time. So don't ever see this. Don't. Just honestly spare yourself. This is garbage. Like this. Oh wow. I was so uninterested. No, don't bother seeing. It's called Portraits of Dangerous Women. It should probably just be retitled Monologues of Uninteresting People, because that's kind of how it's written as well. It's written very amateurly, like people just kind of speak exclusively in monologues. You allow me to do habitually for some reason. Like that. People just speak in unbroken goddamn monologues. And no, the only monologue I want is one that literally ends with "never see this movie." So there you go. I've delivered that.
Well, I can only go on what I've heard and what I've seen on mute as far as the trailer goes, and I would agree with you. It doesn't really grab me at all. So there you go. Portraits of Dangerous Women is in cinemas from today. Right, still to come then. We've got The Convert, we've got Salem's Lot, we've got Timestalker, which I'm really, really interested to hear what Van thinks of, and we're going to find out next. So stay where you are. Hello and welcome back to Off Screen. Right, let's dive straight into our next movie then. Timestalker, out in cinemas from today. It's a comedy, it's a romance, it's a fantasy. I'm really keen to know a little bit more about this, Fan.
Yes, so this is written by, directed by, and stars Alice Lowe. Alice Lowe pulled this same exact multi-job role with Prevenge a few years ago. I want to say that was about 2017 maybe, which was quite memorable. It was a really dark, sort of sinister black comedy that quite clearly had come from the same sort of school that gave us, for instance, Mitchell and Webb, Mighty Boosh, Inside Number 9, things like the Garth Marenghi, things like that. It's very obvious that her talents had come from the same sort of area of inspiration. She indeed is part of that same sort of talent troupe. She is now back. I think this is the second feature from Alice Lowe, and this is like a would-be love story that spans the generations. So she plays Agnes, right? Agnes is a character who initially, as we were introduced in the 17th century, meets and falls in love with a man that she can't have, and he is then sentenced to death. She gets killed in his place and allows him to escape. Flash forward a couple generations, she is then reincarnated in the 18th century and meets him all over again, tries to make a go of it with this one true love this time, and she gets her memories back each time, basically. She remembers this guy, now she's destined to be with him. And this is what seems to happen. She dies in unfortunate manner of ways each time, as we progress increasingly further forward in time, up to near the present day. Like, for instance, we have a visit to the 80s, for instance, and things like that. So it's a love story that literally spans the ages. But the gag here, of course, is that it's Alice Lowe as well. So as you can hear from our clip, a lot of this is delivered in anachronistic, contemporary language. So have a listen. This is from Timestalker.
What ails thee, mistress?
It is hard to explain to a servant. But I shall try, though it be fruitless.
Oh, don't bother yourself, mistress. I must clean the grate.
I have everything I have ever wanted. Fine teeth, my books, a handsome house, a hale and hearty husband who is oft absent, and any trinket my heart desires, but I cannot help but seem to grieve for something I have lost.
Oh, is it your mistress? For I found it under the bed.
I do like that. It's very Shakespearean, isn't it? And I do quite like the comedy that's chucked in there as well.
Well, that bit, for instance, you get it's that kind of that period piece language, but it's infused with the sort of sarcasm of the modern day. But as we go to different periods, obviously, the language changes. But her anachronistic sarcasm kind of runs through it all. And I found that very fun. Now, Alice Lowe generally is not to everyone's particular taste. Like, it's a very specific, she gives a very specific vibe to her work. And in many ways, the thing I always think of is something like Garth Marenghi or Inside Number 9, where if you're not on that frequency, don't force it. You know, certain parts of this kind of area of British comedy have never particularly been mainstream. Mighty Boosh, for instance, isn't that big a mainstream hit. It's still quite a cult thing. And Alice Lowe kind of fits in that. This will go down the same way, but I do think it is one of the more interesting, more artistically interesting additions to the comedy pantheon that we've seen in quite a while. The idea of this, effectively, something like a spin of The Fountain. You know, the Darren Aronofsky movie, The Fountain, for instance, or Cloud Atlas, or something like that, where you have a story that spans multiple time periods and generations, but does something, actually does something quite inventive with it, in this case, taking it from a love story angle, I thought worked really well. I did think worked really well. As I say, this is not a Saturday night crowd pleaser. It's not going to be for everyone at all. But I think if you are someone like me who is a fan of Alice Lowe, and specifically that dark, very sharp, razor-sharp vibe that she puts to things, this is obviously unmissable stuff. Did you see Prevenge?
No, I didn't.
No, that was the one with the red poster where she was pregnant. She's heavily pregnant on the poster, and I think the unborn baby was telling her to murder people. I think that's what it was.
Right, no, I didn't see that. I must quickly say I'm a fan of Nick Frost, though.
Well, that's the thing as well. So,
I like Nick.
Of course you like Nick Frost. You look like his porno version. Like, I told you this. Like,
just 4 foot taller.
When you get someone who's meant to be like the porn parody of someone, they always get someone who's needless, like a needlessly better looking version of that person. That's it. You're the porno Nick Frost. It's the hair and the beard, because you make me think of Fighting with My Family. That's what it is. But
we only watched Shaun of the Dead over the weekend with the family, so
that's one actually that had Alice Lowe was in Sightseers. She's in Sightseers. She's in Hot Fuzz. She's in Hot Fuzz as well, which is obviously the follow-up to Shaun of the Dead.
Yes.
But she was also in the Caravan serial killer comedy Sightseers, which I was a really big fan of. But yeah, Hot Fuzz she was in as well. I think she was Tina. I think she was Tina.
Yeah, I think she probably. Yeah, I think you're right.
But yeah. By the way, completely off topic. Have you seen? Are you aware that there is a Funko Pop video game in existence now?
No.
Right, so this is one. If you've got like a modern generation console, you could just download this from the store and play it. Apparently, and it's like an open world like little mini game thing, but it's based on the brands that they have. You know, like Lego. If you play the Lego game, you play different Lego brands, like Star Wars, Harry Potter, etc. Well, the Funko Pop one seems to be movies owned and distributed by Universal. So Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead are playable games on the Funko Pop video game where you run around as the Funko Pops of Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. Also, and I know this one will be right up your alley, Back to the Future is part of it. So I will find you some YouTube links. I'll send you some YouTube links later. So I know this is completely off topic, but it's because we talked about Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. But yes, Nick Frost, very good in this, gets to play a sort of a... Because he's the husband she's speaking of in the clip in one time period. And obviously he gets reincarnated through into different characters along the way as well. And they always sort of serve similar functions. But he gets to basically play different eras, iterations of the sort of, the Henry VIII archetype, the fat, clammy, slovenly, barren type. He basically plays different era versions of that, and it's a lot of fun. It's very obvious that he's having a good time, and he's liking to do something a bit more experimental than he normally would. It's a good fit for him, to be fair, but because he doesn't really do serious drama that often. So I mean, he does some
it's normally comedy
drama, but yeah, there's always some comedy to it, but never really drama. But you get a hint from this, for instance, that it would be interesting to see him do something like that. But like I say, I liked it, but I don't think this is going to be a hit with 8 out of 10 couples coming out of a Odeon multiplex at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is always for
sense.
me kind of the ultimate barometer on how to recommend it. But I would say if you are someone who likes Boosh and Inside Number 9 and Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, definitely go. In fact, Mindhorn. If you liked Mindhorn a couple of years ago, that one I really liked. That was the Isle of Man action comedy. I'll send you some details that you'll enjoy that.
Well, there you go. Timestalker in cinemas from today. If you like a bit of all of that, then you'll probably enjoy that movie. Right, we've still got The Convert to talk about. But next, Salem's Lot. We'll see what Van thought. Stay there. Hello and welcome back to Off Screen. A couple of movies left to go this week. We're going to talk about The Convert shortly. But right now, in cinemas from today, Salem's Lot. I'm really keen to hear what you think about this, Van, because I've never, ever, ever been a fan of any kind of vampire horror. Like, as soon as you say the word vampire,
never?
I'm not really, no, just want to turn around and walk away.
Well, From Dusk Till Dawn, man. From Dusk Till Dawn's a banger.
No, never seen it.
Near Dark?
No. Interview with a Vampire.
Lost Boys.
All right, I can make an exception for Lost Boys, but...
What We Do in the Shadows. Mind you, that's a comedy, I suppose. So that's kind of a different thing. But okay,
I'm hoping you can sell it to me with this.
30, hang on, because this is going to come up. 30 Days of Night. What did you think of 30 Days of Night?
Oh, okay, yeah, that was half decent. Yeah, I'll give you that.
That was half decent, yeah. Don't ever watch the direct-to-DVD sequel, Dark Days, 30 Days of Night, Dark Days, though. Not very good. Not very good. Very attractive, sort of C-list TV actress in the lead, but I can't recommend the movie on any other basis other than that. Truly terrible, and certainly not a patch on the comics, which, and I swear to God this is true, eventually took the vampires into space. That is an actual thing that happened in the 30 Days of Night comics. So consider that your lesson for today. Anyway, so this does wind up borrowing a fair bit from 30 Days of Night. So an adaptation of the Stephen King novel of the same name, in which an author played by Lewis Pullman returns to his long estranged hometown, which is called Jerusalem's Lot, but the sign sort of decayed, so it's sort of lost the Jeru at the beginning, so Salem's Lot. He returns home to do some research for a book he wants to write, only to first of all enter into a sort of a budding romance with a young woman who lives locally that he meets sort of more or less immediately. But the pair of them then sort of discover together that the people of Salem's Lot are basically being set upon by a bloodthirsty vampire who is trying to turn the people into his army. I've got a clip for you. Have a listen.
I've always written stories about things that are so terrible. You'll run away so your brain won't remember.
So why did you come back?
I'm here for research.
What exactly, though, are you researching?
I can see her lying back in her satin dress.
Have you noticed anything out of the ordinary in the lot recently?
Don't confess. Sundown,
I've got to say, watching the trailer on mute, who's the dude that plays the vampire in this?
Oh, now you're asking, actually. The vampire is... Oh, God, why have you put me on the spot like this? Absolutely could not tell you. No, could not tell you. Sorry.
He just freaked me the hell out, is the reason I'm getting
because it is a mostly makeup effect-driven performance, isn't it? It's all, you can't tell the life who it actually is. It's played as a monster rather than an actual character. The vampire is played as a monster. You also have the vampire's familiar, who's played by Pillow Ashback from Game of Thrones, from Ghost in the Shell. I always enjoy him in pretty much anything he's in. He's always good fun in there. Bill Camp as well is in this movie, and I'm a big fan of Bill Camp. Like, Bill Camp, he's one of those actors, like, no one knows his name, but if I showed you a picture of him, you'd go, oh, that guy. He's always that guy. And he's very much one of those, but he's one of those that within like a minute of being on screen has just classed your movie up immeasurably. And to be fair, it's a good job, because outside of him and the supporting turn for, I'm trying to remember, Mackenzie Lee, I think it is, who plays kind of an interesting sort of quirky, sort of Kingian female lead. Outside of that, you've got a story that doesn't quite stand apart or unique enough in its own right to really offer much. Like, it does feel like you're watching a greatest hits. You're watching an old tread. You're also watching one that doesn't have the most captivating of leads in Lewis Pullman. And Lewis Pullman he played Bob in Top Gun Maverick. You know, the sort of nerdy one of the pilots with the glasses. And he is the son of Bill Pullman, the son of actor and Casper star and Independence Day president Bill Pullman. He's also one of the Thunderbolts in Marvel's Thunderbolts that's coming out like next summer. So he is being touted as a possible next big thing at this moment in time. I don't see it based on this film. I think it's he's very forgettable here. And the problem is that the film itself is forgettable as well. So it would have been quite easy to stand out. You know what I mean? The film being as passe as it is, it would have been a relatively easy job to be memorable, to stand out in this. And either he's just not up to it or the material isn't there. And it's, to be frank, I think it's a combo of both. Directed by Gary Dauberman. Actually, that might be probably one of its better strengths as well. Dauberman does direct it pretty well. This is only his second feature he directed. I think it was Annabelle Comes Home, which is the third. I want to say the third of the Annabelle movies. I know it was a
great
trilogy,
movie.
I think the third one was the best one. And the Annabelle movies, I thought, got progressively better, which is weird because the Conjuring movies have gotten progressively worse as well. So kind of a weird franchise, that one. But he has written on a bunch of the Conjuring movies. So he has actually written this as well, which is, I guess, maybe why it feels so sort of perfunctory and made to that sort of Conjuring spin-off standard. It feels like it's made to the written to the standard of something like The Nun, but it is directed to quite a good standard. Like, it looks the part, it feels the part. It just the script doesn't hook you, the story doesn't get you, and you do feel like you're watching, you know, amateur hour stage recreation. It never quite overcomes that. Put it this way, it's not as memorable as the 2019 adaptation of Pet Sematary, if you want to keep it within the King. You know, the recent King. Did you watch that? Did you watch the 2019 Pet Sematary?
Oh, do you know, I think I did, yeah.
That was the one, was it Jason Clarke? I think Jason Clarke was the dad in that one.
Yeah.
And John Lithgow, I think, was the neighbour next door or something, the old kooky neighbour. But I will say as well, there's a sequence in this, and I'm glad we mentioned Lost Boys now, actually. There's a sequence in this in which you've got a young boy who's one of our leads, a young African-American boy whose young white friend has just died and appears floating as a vampire outside his bedroom window, right? Trying to get him to let him in, like to let him through the threshold into the house, because, you know, vampires have to be invited. And seeing that post Lost Boys. Because I'd never really seen it done. Like, Buffy took the mick out of that scene in 1992. But to be fair, Lost Boys was still relatively new-ish at the time, so it kind of made sense to it. But seeing it done kind of straight-faced, it was fascinating how you really, that it took it out of you. Like, that kind of has ruined it for you. You're best off seeing this if you've seen no other vampire movies. I definitely don't see it if you've seen 30 Days of Night, because you've seen an infinitely better version of this with an infinitely better villain, infinitely better cast. I mean, better than all that, it's got Josh Hartnett in the lead in a movie that also features Melissa George. I mean, come on, I can't print money for you. You're doing a good enough job with that. But, yeah. So, Salem's Lot is ultimately not a lot, to be honest. It's not up to a lot. Yeah, it's a shame.
Well, you can make your own mind up if you wish. It's in cinemas from today, and I guess probably an 11 o'clock coming out of the cinema with your other half saying that was an all right movie kind of scenario.
Maybe that one over Timestalker, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking from what you'd said. All right, well, we've got one last ride left on the show this week. We're going to look at The Convert next, so stay where you are. Hello and welcome back to Offscreen for our final ride this week, and we are looking at the movie called The Convert, which is, I believe, out on digital. So you can watch this from the comfort of your very own home. So it's an action drama. That's about all I know about this one, Van.
Yeah, one of the weird things, I saw the trailer for this. I was visiting my mum about 3 or 4 months ago. I was visiting my mum one weekend, and traditionally, what I'll do is I'll go through the YouTube Rotten Tomatoes trailer channel with her, and I'll catch up on my trailers at the same time. It's my way of keeping my mum vaguely current. You know, and in the hopes that I can get her to go to the cinema sometimes and leave her home. We saw the trailer for this, and I thought we've got to cover it, even though it's going straight to digital. Well, I can't quite believe it is, because for one thing, it's quite a decent spec Guy Pearce drama. It's like a historical Guy Pearce drama, and it's directed by Lee Tamahori. Lee Tamahori gave us Once Were Warriors and the James Bond film Die Another Day and Triple X State of the Union. I know I'm not exactly selling pedigree on those last two, but we are talking about quite a cool action director. And also this is intrinsically tied to the Australian and New Zealand origins of most of its cast and crew. So it is about a lay minister. Like a sort of they're not actually ministers, they're not ordained, but they work for the church in the same kind of thing. Lay minister who basically named Monroe, played by Guy Pearce, who finds himself going to Eptown, going to a colony to basically serve as the local religious figure, finds himself getting into a culture war between, not a culture war, but an actual war between two tribes of the Maori culture, and finds himself torn in his allegiance to firstly one over the other, but also in how far he's willing to protect or take human life in the name of what's right. Have a listen.
This man is my cargo. I must deliver him to Epworth.
E tu aí now?
In a sense.
Very well. Go now.
What about these people?
What will you trade for them?
My horse. My horse for their lives.
One horse, one life. Choose.
This movie has the opportunity to have some amazing cinematography and some great dramatic moments in it. Tell me that it does.
It does indeed. It delivers absolutely on that front. I think it's very good. If it's let down in any way, it's let down only really... And it's not that the story isn't interesting. The story is very interesting. Because, again, you wouldn't have necessarily heard this story. It's not a story that's widely known in this part of the world, for instance, about the Maori people and their wars. To see it actually depicted in this way is actually quite something. It falls apart only really in much the same ways as the films we've been talking about earlier, where if you've seen other films, particularly the vampire one, if you've seen other better vampire films, this is just going to feel like a watered-down retread. And you kind of feel like this to an extent where it gets to a bit like The Last Samurai of the Mohicans' silence. Like, you could describe it as that. Like, it's a little bit Last Samurai, it's a little bit Last Mohican, it's a little bit Scorsese's Silence with Adam Driver. There's little bits of the movies, a bit Dances with Wolves to an extent, but I don't want that to take away from some really great performances. So obviously Guy Pearce front and centre, killing it as always, because of course he's Guy Pearce, he's conscious, he's killing it. Jacqueline McKenzie I haven't seen in anything in years since she used to star in the 4400, so it was nice to see her in here there as well. Tiorore Nagati Melbourne, I believe her name is, who plays Rangimai, the sort of adopted daughter figure to Guy Pearce's character, gives a pretty solid turn. I'll be really honest, for the longest time I thought she was Amber Midthunder, but that's on me. And Antonio Tamawa, I think his name. Antonio Mawa, I think it's Mawa is his surname, as the effectively the sort of big bad cultural chief, that he's sort of bonding with through the course of the movie. Mayanui, because I think you mostly see it written down. Impressive turn as well. I really liked the movie, and I think it's very obvious that Lee Tamahori cares about the source material, because it feels like someone bringing, stylized action sensibilities to a passion project. Plays mostly pretty well. But I think if you've seen enough of these, if you weren't a fan of any of the others of these, if you weren't a fan of Dances with Wolves, of Last of the Mohicans, of Last Samurai, of Silence, then avoid it. But if you like those movies, you are on fine ground here. So have fun with Guy Pearce.
Yeah, just looking at the trailer, there are some beautiful scenic shots.
Totally.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, The Convert, look out for it. It's on digital. When we say on digital, what is it actually on? Are we talking Netflix, Amazon?
Well, no. Otherwise, we say on streaming. If it was something like through Netflix, it would be for streaming. If it's through Netflix or Prime or Disney Plus, that's streaming. Digital tends to mean rent for $3.99 on the Sky Store or whatever. Digital store. You don't have to. You can buy it or rent it digitally. Yeah.
Got ya. There we go. Well, that's cleared that one up. Well, you can do it digitally, The Convert, from now, if you want to check it out. All right, let's have a little look at next week, some of the movies we've got coming up. Head South is one of them we're going to be looking at next week.
Yeah, I think you're going to like this one. So this is also southern continent set as well. So this is set in New Zealand, and it's set in New Zealand in 1979. It stars Ed Oxenbould from Better Watch Out and Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. And he is, I think he's like a coming-of-age story in which he discovers, punk music in 1979 and has to, overcome. It's basically, it looks like what's the one I'm thinking of? The Ballet Kid. What's the famous play about the Ballet Kid that starred Jamie Bell?
Oh,
you know the one I'm thinking of?
The Jam, Town Called Malice.
You know the one I'm thinking of? Billy Elliot. Yeah, this sounds like the Billy Elliot of punk. There you go. How do I forget Billy Elliot? What the hell is wrong with me? Sorry, I've slept this week. This sounds like Billy Elliot with punk, which I'm all about. Punk in New Zealand. Fair play. I'm down for that.
Yeah.
We also have The Crime Is Mine, which is the new Francois Ozon movie, which is like a twisty-turny thriller in 1930s France. We've got The 4:30 movie. New one from Kevin Smith. So I'm invested. It's written by Kevin Smith, it's directed by Kevin Smith. I'm sure he cameos in it somewhere. Can't wait. It's an 80s set coming-of-age drama about a bunch of kids going to movies. And I know, right? It's very much a you and me type movie, but also it's a Kevin Smith movie, so you got my money. We've also got The Apprentice next week, in which Sebastian Stan plays young Donald Trump in the late 70s, early 80s. I've seen this one. We're going to have some fun talking about that. And last, but certainly by no means least, this has been really well received in the States. Clearly, I expect it will be here as well. It's called The Wild Robot, adaptation of a popular children's book, The Wild Robot. And the animated feature adaptation is released here in the UK next Friday, which I believe is the 18th of October, isn't it? Yeah. So, there you go.
Some great movies to talk about next week. Looking forward to some of those. Of course, that is all we have time for this time round on Off Screen. We will return next week. Until then, I've been Adam Ball.
I've been Van Connor, and we shall be back.